Good morning. Welcome back to Natal's Historic Military Foundation. Today, we're going to do a special with Staff Sergeant Devin Golas here, who's our radio man. He does radio work. He repairs it, as you can tell with the wonderful onesie and the apron going on here. So, communication is very important for the military. We need to know where everything is. And this was kind of the early age of radios for the military. So I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Golas over here to talk about what's on his table.
There's a lot of things on my table right now.
Okay.
It sounds like you want to talk about communication stuff.
I do want to talk about
we will.
communications.
Where would you like me to start out of these items right here?
This giant BC-1000 looking thing is probably a great place to start.
So this right here is the SCR 300 or BC-1000. Saw service starting in about 1943 and was actually used by the French, British, and other countries all the way up through the Vietnam conflict until radios such as the PRC-77 and stuff like that came along to replace it. We stopped using it after World War II because we obviously developed better things, but it was still in use by the French mainly. So it's vacuum tube operated.
What is a vacuum tube?
This is basically like, the best way I can describe it, it's essentially a really large glass transistor that needs a lot more power to operate. So it's got like a filament in the center of it. There's a filament just like a light bulb. So when that filament gets hot, it's coated specially that when it gets hot, it'll start bubbling off electrons. So then what you do is you'll have your negative charge right there, and then you'll have your grid and your plate, and you use a positive charge on that, and it'll actually control the flow of electrons in and out of the vacuum tube to either act as an amplifier, modulator, kind of like a switch, kind of thing, just like a transistor does now, except it's made of glass.
And it's really cool and it starts glowing after it's been running for a while.
Oh yeah. And God forbid if you touch it while it's still hot, you can actually make the glass crack. I've seen that happen before.
So that's how they're powered, and that looks like you've got two big pieces here.
Yep. So you can't really see it too well, but this is about the same size as the bottom half anyways. So just up to here is the entire radio unit itself. So that's where all your brains are. So you've got all your vacuum tubes on one side, and then all your wiring on the other side, all your trimmers and adjusters for tuning the radio and stuff like that, making sure everything's aligned. This is the size of the battery. Like the entire inside of this case would be filled with a battery.
That's basically a car battery at that point.
It weighs about, the battery itself, I would probably say the battery weighs like 30 pounds on its own.
So about a car battery on your back.
Yep, so in total, top and bottom halves, you're wearing about 38 to 40 pounds on your back. There was a lightweight battery that would bring it down to about 34 pounds.
That's some serious savings right there.
I mean, hey, whatever works.
So what did they call this? Because I can't imagine they said like SCR 300 and all this other kind of stuff in the field.
So contrary to what most people would think nowadays, when you hear the word walkie-talkie, you're thinking about a little handheld radio that you use at like an event or something like that. Absolutely not. This is the walkie-talkie.
That's the original.
Yes, this is the original walkie-talkie. This is where that term actually came from, because you put it on your back and you walk with it. You don't hold it in your hand.
That's clever.
You know? So you would also think, like I was saying, you would think this is a walkie-talkie, but really obnoxiously large for some reason. Obviously limited by the technology of the time.
Well, it's filled with those vacuum tubes, which are a lot bigger than a transistor.
Yes, so this also had vacuum tubes in it.
Okay.
This entire thing was a very large circuit board on the inside with vacuum tubes that were smaller than that. They call them micro tubes, I want to say.
Okay.
So
what is this?
So this is called a handy talk.
Oh.
So this was more of like your squad level communication.
Okay.
Whereas this guy was more like company level.
Okay.
So it's like you needed like some actual, like say artillery support, fire support, you wanted to call in some tanks or something, you'd report back to company using this. There's just like that scene in Saving Private Ryan where Tom Hanks, they're at the, what is not a hedgerow, but like that sandy bank, and he's trying to call in. He's like dog one, blah, 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 first wave ineffective. That's what this radio is what Tom Hanks was using in that scene.
Nice.
Yeah. So this one actually, so back to the walkie-talkie, this one you can actually change your frequencies and stuff like that. It operates on 40 to 48 megahertz, which is kind of like low FM range, throughout 40 different channels actually.
Okay.
So this one, however, the handy talkie, this is 3.5 to, I want to say somewhere around 6 to 8 megahertz, and it uses AM modulation for your frequencies. So same but different. You'd have these, but this can't talk to that.
Yeah, that'd be too easy. We can't have that.
Oh, absolutely not. These could only talk to themselves and maybe one other radio out there, whereas these ones, you could not change the frequency unless you brought it back to your signal corps repair guide. And you had
Like this?
You had to physically swap out the crystal oscillator inside of the circuit board to change your frequency. So typically, that's why here would be an ID tag that would tell you, yep, it's like, hey, this one's on 4.5 megahertz. When your squads are going out, make sure you all grab ones that are tagged for 4.5 megahertz, or else they're all useless.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what kind of ranges are we talking about?
Oh, dear God. Not much.
Better than yelling across the field, but they'll only by a little
Better.
bit.
So this one, I'm going to use European standards of measurement for this.
Okay.
About a kilometer to a mile-ish of range
Okay.
for the handy-talkie. Whereas your walkie-talkie over here, with this antenna, you're getting 2 to 2.5 miles with clear line of sight.
Okay.
So that's even with you on top of a really large hill, and the guys down in a valley, and no trees in between.
Nice. So probably more like a mile or so.
A mile and a half is what you're gonna typically get if you're running at full power with the standard antenna.
Oh, standard antenna, huh?
That's the standard one.
Okay.
There is also a 10-foot option.
That sounds like a fishing pole on the top of that thing.
It basically is, and it goes together like tent poles. It's
Okay.
all sections. And you have to. It folds up all nice, and then you have to take it. I think there's like 8 different sections that you have to put together. But
Okay.
that one will get you on a good clear day about 5 miles of range.
All right.
If your radio is tuned properly and set up right,
If your signal corps repairman is good to you.
if he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I got you. Cool. Awesome. Well, any other tidbits of radio stuff you want to throw out there?
I don't think I talked about the PP114 power supply.
Okay. What is that, guy?
Okay, so this is if you wanted this, but you didn't want the battery with it, and you were going to operate it all day, but you have a Jeep or something,
Okay.
or any kind of vehicle. So what this would do is you have a long cable right here. It would have some clips on the end, and it would plug into a battery, like your vehicle battery. It could be like a typical Jeep battery from the day. It would be 6 volts.
Right.
You could also swap it to 12 volts or 24 volts.
Kind of like what the Shermans run, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to, you could make it work with that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like a permanent installation in those kinds of vehicles, but in a Jeep they did make special brackets for that.
Nice.
So this would be stationary in the vehicle, and then you would take the top half of your radio and just
Plug it on in.
plop it on.
And this is the guts of that, correct?
So this is the guts of that power supply. So you got some very large capacitors in there, different coils and stuff like that.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yes, it's very heavy. 2 different transformers. So this right here is going to be your main power transformer. Down in here you got 2 rectifier vacuum tubes.
Oh, vacuum tubes again.
Yes, more vacuum tubes. So this basically is kind of like those inverters that you get for your car nowadays for when you're traveling.
Yeah.
Say you want to charge your laptop when you're going, it just plugs into your cigarette lighter adapter. This is what they had to use to do that back then.
You go to Love's, it's like that big nowadays.
You want to see how heavy this is?
Oh, I know this thing's a beast. Good night. You gotta be, what, 20, 30 pounds now?
Yeah, about 20, 25 pounds in this tiny little thing.
Well, when it's a vehicle, who cares?
Yeah. So the way
I'm sure
this
this vehicle
would-
cares, but, you know.
So the way this thing would work is right down here, you have a selector for
Okay.
6 to 12 to 24 volts, and that'll change which tap it uses on your transformer. Whereas here, this is an oscillator, or at the time they called it a vibrator. So basically what that does is when you apply the correct DC voltage to it, it'll start oscillating it and turn it into AC voltage what your transformer needs to magnify said voltage, increase said voltage rather,
Okay.
and make it usable for the 150, 90, and 4.5 volts that requires to get the tubes.
That's a little bit more than 6.
It is a little bit more than 6.
Awesome. Well, cool deal.
Yeah.
That's some good learning for the day. If we go any farther, we may have to get some electrical engineering degrees involved in this. Well, that's Staff Sergeant Devin Golas, our radio repairman, as well as one of our operators. We don't often get a chance to see some working radios, and this one is actually fully functional.
Correct.
Unfortunately, we only have the one, so we can't talk to anything else and show you guys that. But
If you brought your Jeep.
yes, but it's kind of difficult to shove it in here. It's standing room only, just about. It's getting busy. But if you come out to a Thunderbird event, we might be able to show you these in action. So, anything else?
I got nothing.
Alrighty, over to you guys. Appreciate it.